30 with a cold-blooded barbershop murder impacting more than just the victim's friends and families.
Police say a gunman executed a man while wearing a garment associated with the Muslim community.
It was just another Saturday afternoon in North Philadelphia. Customers filled the barbershop, the low hum of clippers blending with casual conversation. People came in for haircuts, quick trims, shaping up for the weekend. Then, without warning, gunshots. Panic erupted. The sharp crack of bullets sent bodies diving for cover. Shattered glass, overturned chairs, screams of terror. In the middle of it all, Tiffany Wade lay motionless, blood pooling beneath her. A woman known for her kindness, her resilience, her devotion to faith and family. Gone in an instant. Who would do this? And why? A calculated attack in a public place. A mother of three, a business owner, executed in cold blood. The gunman didn't just take a life that day. He shattered a community. Was this a targeted killing? A robbery gone wrong? A personal vendetta? Authorities quickly identified a suspect, but the answers only led to more disturbing questions. What happened inside that barbershop? And what kind of man would walk in and pull the trigger? Tiffany Wade was more than just a name in the community. She was a presence of force, a woman who built something from the ground up. She was a business owner, a devoted mother, and a practicing Muslim whose faith shaped the way she lived her life. To those who knew her, Tiffany was hardworking and determined. She had carved out a space for herself in North Philadelphia, running a successful business while balancing the responsibilities of motherhood. She was deeply respected, not just because of what she built, but because of who she was. She carried herself with grace and a quiet strength, the kind that made people look up to her. But Tiffany wasn't just a businesswoman. She was a mother of three, and that role meant more to her than anything else. She was protective, loving, and always working to ensure her children had a future brighter than her own. Her kids were her world. And in an instant, that world was shattered. Losing a parent is devastating at any age, but for children, the pain is different. It's not just about grief. It's about the unanswered questions, the sudden absence, the hole that can never be filled. Her children didn't just lose their mother that day. They lost their safe place, the person who tucked them in at night, the voice that reassured them when life felt uncertain. The community felt the loss, too. Tiffany was well known, and her presence had always been felt, whether through her business, her faith, or her kindness. People spoke of her generosity, her willingness to help others, and the respect she commanded simply by being herself. Now, instead of seeing her smile, they saw candles and flowers placed outside the barbershop where she took her last breath. Her death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a wound to the heart of the neighborhood. The question lingering in everyone's mind was simple but haunting. Who would want Tiffany Wade dead? And more importantly, why? October 7th, 2023, started like any other day. The barbershop on the 2500 block of West Lehigh Avenue was buzzing with activity. Clippers hummed, conversation flowed, and the air carried the familiar scent of aftershave and fresh haircuts. Customers waited their turn, some scrolling through their phones, others engaged in casual conversation. It was a kind of ordinary, everyday scene that gave no warning of the horror about to unfold. Then, in an instant, everything changed. The door swung open, and in walked a man, his movements sharp, his presence unsettling. Before anyone could process what was happening, the sound of gunfire ripped through the shop. Chaos erupted. The first shot was deafening, silencing conversations, sending bodies diving for cover. A second shot followed. Then another. The sharp, metallic scent of gunpowder filled the air as people screamed and scrambled to get away. Tiffany Wade had no time to react. The bullets tore through her torso, striking vital organs, leaving her no chance of survival. One final shot to the head sealed her fate. She collapsed onto the floor, her life stolen in an instant. The man responsible didn't linger. He had done what he came to do. As quickly as he entered, he was gone. The barbershop was no longer a place of routine. It was now a crime scene. Blood stained the floor. The echoes of gunfire still rang in the ears of those who had been there. Some stood frozen in shock, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Others rushed outside, frantically calling 911, voices shaking as they tried to relay the horror of what had just occurred. Police arrived within minutes, sirens blaring, blue and red lights flashing against the windows of the shop. Officers moved swiftly, securing the scene, trying to piece together what had happened. The first responders pushed through the crowd that had already started gathering, their faces filled with disbelief and grief. There was nothing they could do for Tiffany. The paramedics confirmed what many already feared. She was gone. The weight of her death hung heavy in the air, pressing down on everyone present. This wasn't just another crime in Philadelphia. This was a targeted execution. Word spread quickly. Neighbors, friends, and family rushed to the scene, their faces streaked with tears, their voices trembling with anger and sorrow. Tiffany Wade, mother, businesswoman, community figure, had been murdered in broad daylight. The question now was why. The streets of North Philadelphia have seen their share of violence. But this was different. This was personal. A woman who had no known enemies, no history of trouble, had been gunned down without mercy. Who wanted her dead? And what kind of man would walk into a barbershop and execute her so brutally? Have you ever witnessed a crime in your neighborhood? How did it impact you? Armand Hilton, a 44-year-old resident of Chester, Pennsylvania, was no stranger to law enforcement. His past was marked by a series of criminal activities that painted a portrait of a man frequently on the wrong side of the law. His criminal record included various offenses, reflecting a lifestyle intertwined with illegal undertakings. Despite these infractions, none had escalated to the level of the crime he would later be accused of committing. The connection between Hilton and Tiffany Wade was not immediately clear. Speculation arose regarding the motive behind the heinous act. Some wondered if it was a random act of violence, while others suspected a more personal vendetta. Investigators delved into Wade's personal and professional life, seeking any links that might explain why she was targeted. The absence of an obvious connection between the two only deepened the mystery, leaving the community and authorities grappling for answers. In the aftermath of the shooting, law enforcement agencies launched an intensive investigation to identify and apprehend the perpetrator. Surveillance footage from the barbershop and surrounding areas provided crucial leads. Witnesses described the assailant's appearance and demeanor, which matched Hilton's profile. Additionally, forensic evidence collected at the scene further implicated him. With the suspect identified, a manhunt ensued, involving multiple law enforcement agencies. Hilton was considered armed and dangerous, prompting authorities to urge the public to provide any information on his whereabouts. The search extended beyond Philadelphia, reaching into neighboring regions as officers worked tirelessly to bring him to justice. The community, still reeling from Wade's tragic death, remained on edge as the manhunt continued. Vigils were held in her memory, and residents expressed their grief and frustration over the senseless act. The uncertainty surrounding Hilton's motive left many uneasy, highlighting the fragility of safety in their daily lives. As the investigation progressed, the hope for closure and justice for Tiffany Wade and her family became the community's focal point, uniting them in their collective sorrow and determination. The news of Tiffany Wade's murder sent shockwaves through North Philadelphia. It wasn't just another violent crime. It was the deliberate execution of a woman who had been a pillar in her community. The people who knew her struggled to process the horror of it all. How could someone so deeply loved, so respected, be gunned down in broad daylight? And why? The outrage spread quickly. Friends, family, and neighbors gathered outside the barbershop, staring in disbelief at the crime scene tape that now marked the place where Tiffany had taken her last breath. Some wept openly, their sobs breaking the eerie silence that had settled over the block. Others were furious, demanding answers, demanding justice. Tiffany had been more than a business owner. She had been a presence, a familiar face that people trusted. She had built a life rooted in hard work and faith. Now that life had been stolen from her, leaving a void that could never be filled. Her family was devastated. Her children, too young to fully understand the brutality of what had happened, were left with a reality no child should ever have to face. Their mother, the woman who had loved and protected them, was gone. The weight of that loss was immeasurable. The warmth of her embrace, the sound of her laughter, the comforting presence of her voice. It had all been ripped away in a single moment of senseless violence. Her friends spoke of a woman who had always been there for others. She had been the kind of person who checked in on people, who lent a helping hand without expecting anything in return. One close friend, eyes swollen from crying, recalled the last conversation they had. It had been a normal chat about life, about business, about the little things that seemed insignificant at the time. Now, that conversation felt like a final gift, a fleeting moment of normalcy before everything changed. The community wanted justice. They wanted answers. How could this happen to someone like Tiffany? And what would become of her children now? The thought of them growing up without their mother was unbearable. People rallied around them, offering support in any way they could. But no amount of kindness could replace the presence of the woman who had loved them most. As days passed, the pain didn't subside. The questions only grew louder. Who was responsible for this? Why did they do it? And most importantly, would they be caught before they had the chance to take another life? The investigation into Tiffany Wade's tragic murder was both swift and thorough. Law enforcement officials were determined to bring the perpetrator to justice, and their efforts soon led them to a suspect, 44-year-old Armand Hilton of Chester, Pennsylvania. Hilton's identification as the suspect stemmed from multiple pieces of evidence. Eyewitnesses at the barbershop provided descriptions that matched Hilton's appearance. Additionally, surveillance footage from the vicinity captured images of a man resembling Hilton entering and exiting the barbershop around the time of the shooting. These visual accounts, combined with forensic evidence collected at the scene, painted a compelling picture pointing toward Hilton's involvement. Despite the issuance of warrants for his arrest on charges including murder, robbery, and violations of the Uniform Firearms Act, Hilton managed to evade immediate capture. Authorities considered him armed and dangerous, prompting public warnings and appeals for information regarding his whereabouts. The community remained on edge, knowing that a fugitive connected to such a heinous crime was still at large. As of now, there is no public record indicating that Hilton has been apprehended or that a trial has taken place. The absence of closure in this case continues to weigh heavily on Tiffany Wade's family and the community. Her children, in particular, are left to navigate life without their mother's guidance and love, all while the individual responsible for their profound loss remains unaccounted for. The ongoing nature of this case serves as a stark reminder of the challenges law enforcement faces in bringing fugitives to justice and the enduring pain experienced by victims' families in the absence of resolution. Tiffany Wade's tragic death is not an isolated incident, but rather a reflection of a broader issue plaguing North Philadelphia. The area has long struggled with elevated crime rates, particularly violent crimes. According to data from the Philadelphia Police Department, certain neighborhoods within North Philadelphia have experienced higher incidences of violent offenses compared to other parts of the city. In recent years, however, there has been a notable decrease in violent crime across Philadelphia. In 2024, the city witnessed a significant drop in its homicide rate, reaching the lowest point in a decade. This decline is attributed to concerted efforts by law enforcement and community organizations to address the root causes of violence. Despite these improvements, incidents like the murder of Tiffany Wade underscore the persistent challenges that remain. Gun violence continues to be a pressing concern, prompting discussions about preventive measures. The Office of Safe Neighborhoods in Philadelphia has been at the forefront of implementing strategies aimed at reducing such violence. Their initiatives focus on community engagement and evidence-based interventions to create safer environments. The question of whether Tiffany's death could have been prevented is complex. It highlights the need for continuous efforts in violence prevention and community support. Programs like the Group Violence Intervention, launched in Philadelphia in 2020, aim to promote community investment and target individuals at the highest risk of committing violent crimes. These initiatives have shown promise in fostering positive relationships and reducing violence. From this tragedy, several lessons emerge. First, the importance of community vigilance and cooperation with law enforcement cannot be overstated. Second, there is a critical need for accessible support systems for at-risk individuals to deter them from engaging in criminal activities. Lastly, the resilience of communities like North Philadelphia serves as a reminder of the collective effort required to combat the scourge of gun violence. Tiffany Wade's story is a poignant reminder of the work that still needs to be done to ensure safety and justice for all residents. Tiffany Wade's death was more than just another statistic. It was a painful reminder of how fragile life can be, how a single act of violence can send shockwaves through an entire community. She wasn't just a name in the news. She was a mother, a businesswoman, and a woman of faith. She was someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone's mentor. And in a matter of moments, all of that was taken away. For those who knew her, the loss is immeasurable. Her children are left with a future without their mother's guidance. Her loved ones with a void that will never truly be filled. The community she helped build and support now carries the weight of her absence, a reminder of both the violence that took her life and the fight for justice that remains unfinished. But beyond the grief, there's also a question. Was justice truly served? Armin Hilton was identified as the suspect, yet at the time of the last reports, he was still out there, evading law enforcement. If he has not yet been brought to trial, then Tiffany's family is still waiting for closure, still waking up each day knowing that the person responsible for her death has yet to answer for his actions. Does that sit right with you? Do you believe justice has been served in this case? Let us know in the comments. Stories like this aren't just about crime. They're about the lives left behind, the families torn apart, and the communities that continue to fight for safety and accountability. If you found this case compelling and want to hear more true crime stories that shine a light on victims whose voices need to be heard, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. And don't go anywhere, because up next, we're covering another shocking case that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about justice.